Anna Griching is an architect, she's an urbanist, and a very talented musician. And she joins us now from Switzerland. What part of Switzerland are you in, Anna?
I'm in beautiful Geneva,
Ah, wonderful. And
international city.
we've hints of your profession around you and your passions with the guitar and your certificate. Can you tell me a bit about what it is you do? Explain your title, if you will.
Yes, well, I would say that today I'm what you would call a regenerative urbanist, really working on regeneration. But I'm also very interdisciplinary, bringing together different disciplines. I think urbanism itself is a very interdisciplinary field. And yeah, as you mentioned, I'm also a musician. I'm trying to bring, music and architecture and urbanism together more and more. One of my fields of work and my PhD is on landscapes in conflict areas. So my PhD was on the Cyprus buffer zone. But I originally started this work in Berlin on the Berlin Wall. So that was many years ago when the wall was still standing.
Mm.
What I'm interested in is what we call healing ecologies in landscapes of conflict. So, how do we rebuild and reconstruct these areas which have divided territories and divided communities? And how do we use these landscapes also to heal not just the land and the environment, but also the people? And the idea is really, my motto is really going from a deep wound and trauma to a beautiful scar. The idea is also that we shouldn't erase and paper over, these the traumas and divisions that we've lived in the past, but we need to keep them visible, but to make them beautiful. And the beauty comes not just from the beauty of nature or the beauty of design, but also the beauty of the healing process and the people coming together again.
Yeah, and we know that Let's Do It World and the World Cleanup Day, their primary effort is to try and clean up here and now and to change mindsets and patterns in terms of litter and raising environmental awareness. And based in Kiev in Ukraine this year, they've been talking a lot about the terrible destruction and the environmental impact of this conflict in that area. And can you talk a bit about how you see it as connected with, let's say, the post-war cleanup, how that links with the healing that you're investigating in post-conflict zones?
The cleanup, as you said, the this relationship to a cleanup, it's also really our relationship to our environment and our nature. And obviously, we have a lot of work to do all around the world and in all our spaces where we're living. We have a lot to clean up, whether it's our waters and our lands, etc. Obviously, in a landscape of conflict, there's often a lot more to do. And also, obviously, there are different phases because, you have the real urgency, what is the urgency, that we have to address and clean up and address the vital, what people need to live. But then there's also the longer view and sort of repairing, remediating the environment. For example, in certain cases, we know that the forces of real estate and reconstruction and the reconstruction systems can go very quickly once there's a peace process. And so on the other hand, sometimes we have to say, well, maybe we need to take a bit more time to think about how to do the reconstruction properly and also more considering nature. Because as an urbanist, I think, for me, for a long time, we haven't considered nature or water and all of these aspects enough when we're building or rebuilding. So the idea is really to bring these back to the forefront.
Now, you mentioned water there, and we know that in this conflict, that water, the infrastructure of water and getting fresh drinking and cleaning water to people have been targeted. How do you see, for example, the restoration of water? How does that become a tool for both environmental, but then also community healing?
Yes, I think water is very important, and I'm working a lot on water now. All my work is really focused on the blue, and and the water has many aspects, whether it's symbolic, spiritual health, and just for keeping us alive, and we're 80% of water. So it's very important. I think here what the opportunities is that we see that in places where there's either conflict or scarcity of water, etc. You do find, that we are coming up with new solutions. And maybe, one of the things that I think is interesting is this idea of small is beautiful and resilience, because we find we've always built very, very big infrastructures, whether it's water systems, etc. We've really gone for the big, and the efficiency. And I think that now we're saying, well, maybe we need to kind of create, smaller systems and to look at all this, from a systems point of view. Obviously, as you say, we have to look at, what's the most urgent, cleaning up, the areas, wherever upstream, downstream, where the pollution and everything is. But it's also looking at how could we maybe make smaller systems, which would be, much more resilient as well, and could be much better maintained. So I think that, I think the interesting thing with the reconstruction is really trying to reflect on the future and creating more resilient infrastructures, and also ones that can be better sort of taken care of with the community. So one of the things I think would be interesting is thinking more, because of the work you're doing, it's really very much also bringing communities together, and seeing how do we, do this work with the communities, and through the communities really create this resilience between the water systems and the communities that are using them, but also that are sort of looking after them. So I think there's some interesting things to explore also there.
I'm conscious, that everyone's been so conscious during this show and across the broadcast and working on World Cleanup Day from Kiev this year, that there will be people, of course, especially in the country of Ukraine and places where the fighting is still raging at this very moment, who say, how can we even begin to talk about environmental cleanups? And I can't even imagine how, fixing the environment or rebuilding landscapes or structures, how that could help me with my trauma. It's so deep and it's so raw at the moment. What words would you have for Ukrainians now who may come across this, who might be thinking that they're just so distraught, their lives have been destroyed? How can the rebuilding of their landscapes, their environment, how could that help towards healing?
Yes, I think, it's always very difficult to speak when we're in a peaceful place and in the comfort, so, my heart goes out to them and to, all the people in the conflict zones. And we know there are many also in Gaza today, they're facing really, really difficult times, and in Ukraine. I think, and I am a firm believer that, that nature is a healer, and also, the reconnections to nature are very important, and our environment. And I think that, we are beginning to realize more and more that that we're very interconnected with nature, and that our survival is also dependent on the survival of nature, so that we can't survive without nature. Now, as you say, people who are in the trauma, it could be more difficult. But I think if we've seen, there are some interesting examples and projects where you've seen people come together from both sides of a division, and created conserved landscapes, conserved endangered species, created healing landscapes, planted trees, etc. And I think there is a lot of positive and literature and even research that does show us that it does help people, to overcome the trauma. And of course, it takes even maybe generations, but it is a process, and it is a working process. And I do think, and I even know that for myself, I mean, I'm very, happy and glad not to be in such a difficult situation. But I know that for myself, it's, nature is very important, and it's a very important healer. And if we clean up nature and regenerate nature and heal nature, she will also heal us and regenerate us. So I think it's really this two-way thing. And I think another thing is it's something that can connect people outside of culture and nationalism and identity and religion and all these things that when we find in these conflicts, it's, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing nationalism, religion, things that are dividing people. And nature can be a way, that whatever, the animal or endangered species or the flowers or etc., they don't have a nationality. And people, everyone can agree and have this same type of sentiment towards it, so in a way it can break away or break down maybe those barriers that separate us sometimes from our neighbors.
That's wonderful. Well, it's a lovely note to leave it on, and I want to say thank you for your time, for joining us from Geneva in Switzerland. Anna Griching, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you.